Hello, and once again, I welcome all of you. So, this is going to be a little bit of a two-parter sort of video, one that's going out the day before, and one that's going to be going out the day commencing. So, in like the last 5 minutes, I already put together a plan. Now, what is this plan, you may be asking? Well, for the uninitiated, I have aspirations that in maybe 5 years' time, maybe sooner, it might even be a little bit later, but I have plans to actually work in Las Vegas. The problem we have is, well, I have two problems at hand. Ones that I need a lot of. The first is cash. The reason being, once I get out into the States, I've got to have before I'll have to have work in prospect, but I will also need a place to live, be able to afford rent, all the good that comes with it. That doesn't account for anything like public transit. To be honest, I'm no stranger to walking. To be honest, I quite prefer walking than taking public transport or even driving nowadays. It would seem. It's not that I can't drive. It's just I have a bit more. You don't need anything unless you can use your legs. That's with that being said. So I suggested the idea that £10,000 is the absolute minimum requirement I would need once I get myself out there. I would say base maximum. Well, to be honest, a maximum is almost unlimited. But for the purposes of this, I would say base maximum would have to be either £20,000, almost double the base minimum, or at least £25,000 for that matter. Already, we have a bit of a problem because if we're going to say calculate 5 years, the original plan is that I was going to be there in about 2,000 days. So when I first made that claim, it meant that I would have to sort of arrive at some kind of conclusion or touch down in Nevada by about the 30th of August 2031. Pretty much 5.5 years from right now, if we're being honest about the way these things go. Now, whilst that doesn't sound like a particularly short time, what is going to be a factor, however, is how we can even get to 10,000, let alone 20,000 during that time. Well, let's address all that first. So, what I've done a few days ago is that I opened the Las Vegas fund, if you will, in which the way it works is that when I get paid off work, I will put like 100 quid of it into this kitty, so to speak, and whatever money I make from tip jar, because I work in a place in which I get tips, we round that up to the nearest 25 and we'll put that in, which of late it was in the like 88 quid parameter. So that meant rounded up to the nearest 25 means that we get to put an extra 100 quid in. And when I got paid off Google a short time ago, we did the exact same thing. We rounded that up to the nearest 25 and we put that into the kitty as well. Well, technically we did it for Google and for work. We haven't quite done it for TipJar yet because TipJar is like, it goes over until at least like the middle of April until I see that. It could be 100 quid. It could be 75. It could be 150. It just depends how good business is and how charitable people are if they are willing to tip. That sort of thing. It's kind of a little bit more of a test of faith or something like that, as opposed to more economic stability. But it is a thing we are going to rely on. So far, we've managed to, in just the span of 5 days, we only need £9,793 just to get to 10 grand. So that's like 207 quid in like 5 days we've managed to put in, which is, what does that average out to? Like £41.50 a day, something like that is what we're putting away. £41.50 daily actually sounds like a good place to get started, if you ask me. However, there's a little bit more to it than just that. Because how did we arrive at 9793, if you may be asking? Well, because what I did is that from literally the very first day I started doing this, because I know based on my mathematics, we were not quite going to get, we wouldn't be able to raise £5,000 by the time we get to 2031. So what I did is that I started introducing a tax onto this kitty immediately. What is this tax, you may be asking? For the small sum of just £1 a day, we add into the kitty, which explains why that's there. So it's basically been an extra £7 we've added. I made a point of like making 2 videos where I put in £2, so that's kind of how those numbers add up, so to speak. So on average, based on what we had on the aforementioned criteria, we're putting away about £360 every single month going forwards into this. Now the problem is that that's still, I think that still means it would take at least just under 3 years in order to we could actually reach that target of 10,000. Now some of you may immediately say to yourselves, that's still quite good in the grand scheme of things. It may not be perfect, it may not be excellent, considering, you know, there's like other things I have to pay for, like rent and, you know, bills and stuff like that. However, what this does illustrate is that, guess what? It's a route to success, if ever there was one. But the problem is that I still feel like deep down in here, I know there's a lot of ways we could do even better than this. So starting, well, basically now, since the clocks start changing, we are going to make do for the next 7 months until the clocks have to go back again to maximize or capitalize on adding about as much as we can in such a short amount of time. So what I propose is that starting from like now up until the very end of April, so that gives us the span of about 33 days, call it 32 for what it's worth. I want to be able to get from 9793 down to a flat 9,000, meaning that I have to somehow make the total of about £793 in 33 days. A big undertaking, don't get me wrong. So how are we going to do it? Well, there's a few things I did have in mind. The first, and probably the most significant of them, is that to cut costs any which way I can. So that means what little I do, you know, like have on subscriptions or anything like that, they are going to have to be subsided for the time being. Like maybe we could organize a system in which I make the most of them in April, then I don't renew them in May, maybe June, then we'll renew them again in July, then we'll pause for another 2 months. So basically we only have to pay for like about a third of a year for stuff like that. That might be a way of like sort of stemming the tide. And guess what? Whatever money we do save from this, we can put straight into the kitty, which will be about what, like £30 extra a month, something like that. So that alone figures out a way we could get it from to at least 9,763. Okay, we're still like nearly still over £700 away. So, well, what else are we going to do? Well, we're going to have to get a little bit creative. And you know what? There's a very, very easy solution to all of this, namely this. Anything I do go to the shops for to buy for food, literally use all the surplus and stuff like that and literally put it into the kitty. AKA, the only thing I go to buy for food is, you know, foodstuffs that I use for lunches when I'm at work. And guess what? This coming week is going to be no exception because I'm on night shifts all the way through next week. So it's probably even a point of reference that I probably won't even need that anyway. So guess what? Just, I don't know, to maybe bring a big bottle of water or something like that, keep the mind flowing, and just get to work and come away again and just go straight to bed once the day is done, and I won't even feel anything. Because I also don't really go to the gym much anymore, but what I still do is I spend a lot like usually I get whatever time I get, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, and I go for a brisk long walk. It's more for the sake of getting fresh air, and whilst summertime is shortly approaching, get some much needed sun on my skin. It's more of a necessity more than anything when you think about it. Getting a little bit of exercise, whether it's just through walking or going for a brisk stroll or something like that. I'd say, all is being fair, I think that's a fairly good compromise, if we're all things considered. So guess what? The proceeds from food, I mean, what is that, about like 100 quid a week? So 400 quid almost immediately can surplus that. So we still but that still means we have about 300 quid that we have to make up from somewhere. Well, the only thing I can mention to that is, I don't know, whatever I get paid from Google, find a way to make even more from Google, or whatever the surplus is, take that out of my wages and just put that into the kitty as well. Because currently I'm only on about 32 hours a week in any case, so that means that maybe at some point, maybe during like either June or July, I'm going to start asking whether or not my contract can be upgraded so I could do 40 hours a week. You know what? I think it's a route I was always going to take anyway. It's just I'm going through the operation of being broken in rather gently. And this seems to satisfy quite a lot of people, if I'm being honest. So you know what? Why quit on a good thing? So that might be what it takes. And if that is what it takes to get us all the way down to 9,000, you know what? So be it. It's still well, call it 800 quid we have to make for all the difference that makes. Still, 800 quid is no small feat to be putting away into an idea like this. Nevertheless, what it does do is illustrate a very an efficient way of, guess what? It's absolutely doable. In fact, to be honest, we could almost round this down to 300 quid, because what I did last week is that I spent 20 quid putting 5 lines on the lottery fundable for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and I did not even get a matching number on any of them. I don't even know if I've even checked, so maybe I'll check, but guess what? That 20 quid can just as easily go into the kitty as well. So I like to imagine in some small way we can make it if we can stick to this rigidly defined operation. 800 quid, it means we're almost a tenth of our way in like less than 10 weeks. Probably even less than 8 weeks, if we're being honest. So that's maybe the idea of cash settled for now. The next point, and the other point, is when it comes down to experience. Now, I've been told it takes roughly a whole year to make a reliable croupier out of someone. An idea that I don't dissuade, because I've been on the floors now as a croupier, like in amongst the big fish, for about nearly we're coming up to a whole month. I've been doing this, and it's a little bit of a steep climb from what I was doing before. But what it does prove is that, guess what? I'll get more experience. I'll gain more confidence in what I do. And with all of these things adding up quite nicely, it means we can, I don't know, like if things go well, you know what? People might start taking notice about how confident and how smooth and how, flexible I am with what I do. and there may even be a potential for possibly, I don't know, promotion, somewhere like that. But that's going to require a lot of hard work, and I'm certain I'm going to, stub my toe a few times along the way. However, it does present an idea, ladies and gentlemen, that guess what? Get about as much as I can out of this, and they will give me just as much in return. This one is a slightly easy one to cover because this one could only be solved with time. But it does give me a point of reference in terms of, well, where I'm at right now, as opposed to I need to be all the way up there. But right now, I'm just sort of down here doing basic graft. But at the same time, if that's what it takes to do basic, then guess what? Getting up there isn't exactly out of the realm of my imagination. So, with all that being said, I think that's just about everything I need to cover. So, starting from now is when we're going to put all of this into effect as a part of Operation Phosphorericus. It's a complicated process, but a very, very delicate operation, because if we stick to this, and if it works, then what I've actually managed to do is actually relatively something quite impressive. And people do pay attention to things that are quite impressive sooner or later, because guess what? Like money, everything adds up. And if everything adds up and comes to something very conclusive, then guess what? Who's going to argue with it? I have my aspirations, I have my desires, I have my goals, so therefore, I have to see them through. And there's nobody who's going to see them through apart from only myself. So therefore, I am, right now, the biggest obstacle. But guess what? Time may not be on my side, but guess what? I can start making time pay for me instead. But with all that being said, I'll see you later guys again next time. Thank you.